Imagine coming to work and stumbling upon a body. Officials tell us that's exactly what happened here. This is such a horrific tragedy for this tight-knit community. Behind me there is the scene, and that is where law enforcement officers from around the state have been out here for more than 10 hours. I'm here on West Campbell Road, and this yard was covered in uprooted trees around 9 this morning. So a lot of progress is being made here. The Kathleen area was the hardest hit. So you can really see inside of there.
Yeah.
The only state-owned autonomous vehicle testing site in the country. More than 250 pages of the school district's investigation into this incident. Investigators believe that Yasmin was wearing headphones as she approached the railroad tracks. They also believe that she was looking down at her phone as the train was coming.
And then you gotta bend your knees. You gotta bend your knees. Hey.
Now a veteran in the rap game.
And Stephanie, I want to bring you in so you can share your story on this. You recently decided for Black History Month to let your hair be natural. So explain your decision there and sort of your journey on this topic.
Well, Holly, I wanted to wear my hair in a curlier style. I usually flat iron it straight. And I wanted to let young girls as well as other women of color know that you can wear your hair in a curly style and still be successful in news. I have been texting back and forth with Rachel Jones since April 1st. She was too sick to talk until now. She said the nightmare all began for her family when her husband returned from Israel on March 18th. Missionary Danny Jones thought he wouldn't get COVID-19 when he left for this trip to Israel March 8th.
And everybody kept reassuring him, this is not a big deal.
But as the COVID-19 pandemic quickly progressed, Israel was put on lockdown. He returned home Wednesday, March 18th, with a slight fever. The family quarantined at home.
And our oldest daughter, who was 16 years old, she locked herself into her room.
By that Sunday, Danny's fever spiked to 101. He went to get tested.
He started coughing.
The symptoms got worse, and later that week he found out he tested positive for COVID-19. By that time, Rachel and their 3 daughters, ages 10, 13, and 16, had all already started experiencing symptoms.
All 4 of us started having a terrible headache, body aches, and we started running low-grade fevers. Sorry.
She still has the persistent dry cough.
It's just so hard to go to sleep when you have that feeling like you're suffocating.
Danny was taken to the hospital, and the next day, Rachel and her girls got tested and learned they were positive 2 days later. At that moment, for you, what was that like?
At this point, all of the major symptoms had set in. The girls were barely eating, they were barely drinking.
Miserably ill and taking care of her sick children, it started to take a toll on Rachel.
And I cried a lot behind the scenes.
Her husband was in the hospital for 5 days before returning home. And that wasn't the end of hospital visits. Their oldest daughter, Tara, was rushed to the emergency room. She was severely dehydrated.
Every time she would get out of her bed just to go to the bathroom, she would black out.
She stayed at the hospital for a few hours, then returned home.
With her being so scared, she, said, I'll drink a gallon of water every day. I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to be away from you.
Rachel said the virus just does what it wants. Some days the fevers are gone, then they come back.
I would say the overwhelming message that I would say to people is to take this seriously.
Rachel and her husband Danny are still dealing with fevers with no clear end in sight. They are asking everyone to pray for them. I'm Stephanie Claytor. I'll send it back to you. 37-year-old Monica Young recalled seeing COVID-19 patients on stretchers filling the hallways as she arrived at New York City Health and Hospitals Harlem on April 6th.
There were dozens and dozens and dozens of cases, and first looking at it, it was overwhelming.
I imagine you saw a lot of death.
Oh, yes. I think the hardest thing for me was a lot of the patients that died, they didn't get to die with their loved ones or their family.
Instead, she and other nurses held their hands.
If they was not able to get back home, at least they were able to have someone hold their hand and pray with them if needed to be, so they wouldn't die alone. That was.
Do you remember how many people you witnessed die, or did you stop counting?
I stopped counting.
She said the majority of patients came in complaining of shortness of breath, but some only had low-grade fevers.
They were not symptomatic. They were walking, they were talking, and within a few hours, we were intubating them.
The good news, she said about half of the patients on the COVID-19 floor she worked on were discharged during her time there. Monica is in quarantine in her room for 14 days. She tested negative for the virus while she was in New York. She said she got tested again when she got off of the plane here in Florida. She's awaiting those test results. Stephanie Claytor, Spectrum News. Look at you. Two sisters reunited after Hurricane Dorian tried its best to take one of their lives.
Just overwhelmed to get out.
The Category 5 storm flooded Shiante Russell's home on Great Abaco Island, causing her, her husband, and two young children to leave on a flatbed truck and head to a shelter.
The toilet started to flood. The water just gush, gush, and everything started to shake. One spell we heard something hit my bedroom and then bam! It wasn't nothing ordinary.
The stench outside is something she'll never forget.
Just dead. Be it animals, be it human beings, I don't know, but fishes in the water, but you just have to go.
The family sought shelter in this government complex for 4 days. She said there were about 170 people there at the time and one bathroom.
The shelters are horrible. All of them are horrible. Everyone had to fight for their own food. There wasn't enough water.
As soon as they heard flights were available, they got their tickets and headed to Nassau.
Abaco is no longer. I don't know when it will ever become like Abaco again, like the Abaco I know, because seeing it how it is, it can be very traumatizing. It can be very what is it? Because this is nothing that we know. This is nothing that we call home.
Shiante is also shaken up about the people who didn't survive. She said she's lost 3 co-workers.
We lost a lot. I lost a lot of my friends.
She called it a bittersweet moment when the family left Bahamas for Florida. Now here with her sister Dominique Alexander, she feels the family can finally rest.
I'm just trying to get away, trying to get my kids away from it, because like I said, there's nothing left to go back to at this point.
Shiante said she has no idea what is next. For now, she'll stay with her sister Dominique, and all she can think about is her family is safe and alive. In Orlando, Stephanie Claytor, Spectrum News.
Okay, and my kisses.
Maine Montague now has to raise 3-year-old Paris alone.
Every day is definitely tough for us. She has nightmares, and then sometimes she has dreams where her mom is actually there. And, with me not sleeping, I usually hear the whole conversation, and you could just hear her say, "Mom, come on, let's go." Or, "Mommy, no, I don't want to get up."
She's old enough to remember her mom, Jessica Montague, and be aware she's no longer there.
What's Mommy's name?
Mommy's name is Jessica.
Oh, you remember?
Yeah.
Was Mommy very pretty?
Yeah.
Maine calls Jessica his soulmate. They had just celebrated their 1-year wedding anniversary when she was killed. She worked out with him, and they even worked on cars together.
This was her baby. Other than her 3 kids, this was definitely her baby.
You said you're having trouble sleeping.
Yeah, that's been since day one. I know I usually go a couple days without sleeping.
He said staying busy is the only thing that keeps him going.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my wife and think about where we would be now. I feel like one day she's still gonna come home.
But he knows through their daughter Paris, Jessica's legacy lives on. Stephanie Claytor, Spectrum News. Yeah, I'm here on West Campbell Road, and this yard was covered in uprooted trees around 9 this morning. So a lot of progress is being made here. The Kathleen area was the hardest hit. I live near here. I can tell you it was some frightening moments last night, and still the power is out. Cracked windows and windshields, dented cars, and backyards and roofs destroyed. Extensive damage in around the Ashley Point neighborhood just north of Kathleen.
My daughter had just walked out of her room, and a tree came right in over her head just as she walked out.
It reminds me back of Irma, but worse, because we didn't have any structural damage hardly at all there except some roof shingles.
Frances Palermo was asleep when the tornado hit. She said the noise woke her up.
The floor moving and the noise boom, boom, boom. It's something in the window.
She got her father out of the guest room just before her fence came flying through the window. Frances, a native of Puerto Rico, said she had no idea what was going on at the time. Have you ever been in a tornado before?
Never in my life.
The roof on her home is destroyed, along with her kids' playhouse and trampoline. 2 miles down the road, Kathleen Middle School also received extensive damage.
It's very, very extensive to all floors. There's a basement, there's a middle floor, and there's a top floor. All 3 floors are damaged. Computer labs are damaged. Everything that's in there is basically is going to be trashed.
School will be closed Monday and Tuesday as crews make repairs and bring in portables. Our meteorologist Mike Clay says that this is the second EF2 tornado to hit the northern portion of Polk County in recent years. Back in 2017, during Hurricane Irma, another EF2 tornado hit Polk City just east of here and also caused extensive damage. Live near Kathleen, I'm Stephanie Claytor, Spectrum News. Now on Spectrum Bay News 9, a Manatee County mom accused of leaving 2 children in a hot car. Deputies say she was intoxicated and hostile. And an arrest in a Tampa house fire earlier this month. Police say the suspect knew a woman was inside sleeping when he ignited gasoline. We continue to watch the whales that stranded themselves on Reddington Beach yesterday. An update on the 2 that are recovering in Tarpon Springs. Round 2, day 1, the Democrats facing off again, this time in Detroit. And a fond farewell to a retiring Florida Highway Patrol trooper who served Manatee County for 36 years. I'm Stephanie Claytor. This is your news weather now. Our top story tonight, a Bradenton mom accused of being so drunk she left her kids in a hot car. Deputies rescued both a baby and toddler from that car just in time, and we're told they were already suffering from heat exhaustion. Spectrum Bay News 9's Josh Rojas is in Bradenton with more.
In the driveway of this home is where Manatee deputies rescued those 2 young kids from a hot car. Now, deputies say inside of the home was completely filthy with no edible food and liquor bottles strewn about. Now take a look over here and you can see piles of trash that were taken from inside the home today, along with furniture. Deputies say 35-year-old Andrea Cole was so drunk that she had no idea she left her kids in the car. Deputies say they rescued a 7-week-old baby and 2-year-old boy from that hot car.
We're told both children had bites and sores on their bodies. Deputies say they were called to Cole's home for a possible domestic disturbance. New development surrounding a Tampa house fire earlier this month. A man now faces arson and attempted murder charges in the case. Tampa police say John Petrie set the home on Church Avenue on fire on purpose by pouring gasoline in the hallway and igniting it. Investigators say he knew a woman was sleeping inside at the time. She was able to escape but was burned on the foot. The Trump administration is now exploring a possible vacant sites in Central Florida to locate a permanent shelter for migrant children. Spectrum Bay News 9's Jeff Allen tells us that even state lawmakers say they didn't know about this until last night.
Virginia, Los Angeles, and Central Florida. Those are the locations HHS says it's considering to build a state-licensed permanent shelter for unaccompanied migrant children. Government officials say they must search for permanent shelters to reduce the need for temporary influx shelters in the future. The Department of Homeland Security has apprehended nearly 60,000 children, including thousands at this camp in South Florida, as it battles what it calls an illegal immigration crisis at the border.
Even the idea of scoping out a location in Central Florida causes alarm for all of us.
Local Democratic leaders were quick to criticize plans to possibly open up a shelter here. Many Democrats have criticized the lack of transparency at other migrant shelters across the country.
As a state lawmaker, I can visit state prisons unannounced, and I've been doing that this summer. There is absolutely no ability to do that with these type of federal profit-driven detention camps, and so that alone causes us fear.
A spokesperson for Governor Ron DeSantis says the governor is aware of the letter sent out and reiterated the governor's calls for immigration reform.
In Pinellas tonight, an update for you on the pod of whales rescued from Redington Beach yesterday. 2 of them are still recovering at a new Clearwater Marine Aquarium facility in Tarpon Springs. Our Kate McVeigh is there with the update.
2 pilot whales relaxing calmly in this giant tank, not bothered at all by the rescuers looking them over.
So far, so good. We're really encouraged by the progress that they're making.
2, 3. Quite a different scene from yesterday when the whales, along with 3 others, stranded themselves along Redington Beach. Dozens of vacationers.
We will continue to check in on the whales and, of course, let you know when they are set to be released. An update to a story we first brought you last week. An arrest warrant has been issued for a Tampa man in connection with a recent theft at Struthers Honey in Lake Wales. Investigators say the so-called store's honor system was violated and hundreds of dollars worth of honey was taken in exchange for just a few dollars. Detectives now say one of the people seen in surveillance video is 52-year-old Muhammad Abdallah Hamid. The other man and woman haven't been identified. Call Heartland Crime Stoppers if you have any information. Friends and neighbors of the California Garlic Festival suspect are speaking out. Family friend Jerome Turkin said when they heard the news of the shooting at the Gilroy Festival, the family of 19-year-old Santino Lagan initially thought he was a victim. Turkin was shocked to later learn Lagan was the accused gunman.
Really don't expect that, being from a quiet boy that doesn't get in trouble or anything.
Residents held 2 vigils last night to honor the victims. Decision 2020 coverage now. The second round of the Democratic presidential debates is tonight in Detroit. Once again, the debates will be spread over 2 nights like the first debate in Miami last month. 10 candidates will square off each night. We'll bring you complete coverage both nights on Spectrum Bay News 9. There's also a full breakdown on how the candidates qualified and who you'll see each night on baynews9.com. An emotional farewell tonight for a Florida Highway Patrol's trooper. She was the current longest-serving female trooper. Her name was Barbara Earhart, and she signed off today for the last time with a clear message: girl power.
I also hope that I have encouraged other women throughout my years that may have entered law enforcement and those that are thinking about entering law enforcement.
Trooper Earhart served her entire 36 years in Manatee County. Her final radio call continued with thanks to her loved ones and co-workers and well wishes and congratulations and goodbye from them. We thank Trooper Earhart for her service and wish her a happy retirement.